Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start out with a statement. The post-incident assessments are essential to being better prepared for the future. In every incident, there are opportunities for learning, and the Horse River wildfire is no different. We're committed to reviewing the Government of Alberta reports by KPMG and the MNP and working with them to improve our region's emergency preparedness. The Horse River wildfire was an unprecedented event with respect to both scale and the rate of change. It is critical for us as a municipality to have a complete understanding of the events leading up to the evacuation, which is why we've requested that the KPMG focus on an initial response as part of our ongoing review. We want to ensure that we learn as much as possible from this experience so that the municipality can be better prepared and that the learnings can be shared to help municipalities across Alberta and beyond better for emergencies. We'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
Yeah, when Vince McDermott for McMurray today, when we spoke last month, you expected that these reports would have what you call hard truths. Is that how you describe these reports after looking at them?
Yeah, I think you can feel the initial emotion coming back to our community. And I still agree with that. There are some hard truths there, but I think that's important for all of us to understand and in order to move forward and learn those lessons that we all need to have.
And what stands out the most?
As far as hard truths?
Yes.
Yeah, the hard truths is for me personally, I can tell you the situational awareness piece. Truly understanding and what that means to the community.
Vanessa Pratnam from Global News. So, I mean, there was the talk about poor communication hampered the response. The provincial and municipal command center is operating in a bit of silos. Was there anything that you saw that kind of reaffirmed what you believed was happening at the time, or can you take us through that? But part of those learnings, and I mean, you all are now understanding that, but the reality of it is, we've been in discussions about this far internally a long time ago, and I go back to the situational awareness. It's an important piece, and obviously there was a gap there. Working really closely with our local forestry folks here, which is critical, and those are the folks that were there in the initial days. So we've made incredible strides towards that situational awareness. We haven't waited for someone else to do that. We know the lessons learned, and we're moving forward with that.
Jaron Beck of Harvard Broadcasting in the KPMG report has said that the province and municipality wasn't prepared to battle a wildfire this size. I don't know if you agree with that or just your opinion on that.
I think we all need to ask ourselves a wildfire of this size and the rate that it changed. I think there's statistics, some stats out there. The third largest global disaster. I'm not sure if. I can certainly say that. Can you ever be prepared for a disaster of that size and scale? Certainly should be everybody's goal, and to work forward to. But what we faced last year or last May was unprecedented.
Chief, at this point, is there anything that you want to see addressed? A fix, a solution? What's kind of biting at your mind right now?
I'm in the communication thing, but I think if we were to look at any review about many disasters, and we can go back in history, communication is always a challenge. Certainly when you have an incident and an operation of this size, you bring multiple agencies in on one incident. That interagency communication and operability is always a challenge, and it will continue to be.
One of the things that the reviews highlighted was that the radios were not on the same frequency. Can you tell us how that impacted the response, or how that impacted just the day-to-day operations on the ground?
In respect to the radio communications and the radio frequencies, unfortunately, that's not an uncommon thing. If you were to look all over the province and all over the country and in North America, if you do your research there, communications is always one of those major factors in any disaster. So to think that we can pin that the communications was an issue just about this, I encourage everyone to reach out there and look at the history on other disasters. Communications is always that leading lessons learned.
But as a radio frequency, shouldn't everyone be on the same, I don't know if you call it a channel, but shouldn't you?
Yeah, but then you're getting into the technical pieces of it, your digital systems, analog systems, communication world, and I'm certainly not one of those folks. When you have multiple agencies working on the same incident, each one of them bring their own communication system with them. Is there interoperability? No, there is not. But the province has instituted the AFRAX radio system for first responders. That there is a step towards that. Now, the next step is all those agencies need to participate in that radio system. That will assist any other incident like this.
Are you worried about the length of time that will take to happen?
I'm going to leave the length of time there. That is a bit shocking to me. I can tell you that the AFRAX, during the wildfire last year, the AFRAX radio system was brought up to support our operation, and it functioned immediately and it functioned effectively.
So you believe it can be implemented sooner rather than that 5-year window that they keep talking about?
Yeah, some of the lessons learned from the wildfire of last year. Physically, the AFRAX radio system supported that incident, brought up a number of portable radios. We then handed them out to the responders, and it worked.
So why do you think such a delay?
I can't answer that one. It is alarming and concerning, but I know by firsthand that it does work in our region.
How long did it take to implement one command center? One of the reports highlighted there was what's called, I think, an incident command system structure, and then you had REOC. At what point, on what day, were both unified?
May 1st, on Sunday. If we all remember, on May 1st, the fire had started, there was 2 fires that had started. The one south of town, to what we're here talking about today, it had actually, that was the day that fire had started. So immediately the Emergency Operations Center had activated with the concern to the community and the direction that the fire was going. That was not a municipal fire at that point. It was in the Boreal Forest. It wasn't accessible by ground. It was only accessible for aerial fire suppression. And as you recall, there was a state of local emergency initiated on May 1st, Sunday, which then enabled us to evacuate portions of the southern portions of Fort McMurray, Prairie Creek, the trailer park, and voluntary of the Gregoire area. So that effectively helped us and enabled us to protect the community, that perspective. Now, when I'm going to go back to the size and the rate of change to May 3rd and how that happened, that then takes that wildfire and changes the complexity of it, which is, again, unprecedented. You have to take that operations center and upscale it tremendously in a very, very short period of time.
So when was that done? What day? Because the report says it might have been 3 days, it might have been a week. They're not even sure if it was ever done. So, I mean, can you tell us, when was it unified?
So the Regional Operations Center was activated on Sunday, May 1st, and the forestry, the Alberta Agriculture and Forestry representative was in the REOC on May 1st.
Chief, what can you say to residents? I'm sure that whenever the weather gets hot or there's lightning strikes, they get their backs or they get tensed up. What can you say on a go-forward basis about the mistakes that happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future should something arise?
I think it's important for our residents in our community that us in emergency services, we have already taken steps towards improving our situational awareness. One of the biggest lessons learned was that making sure, although it is out of our jurisdiction, we don't have eyes out there in the boreal forest. We don't have resources, we don't have tools to tell us that. So you need to have those good, solid, sound working relationships so that you can gain that information and internally improve your own knowledge of it. We have done that. Moving forward, we need to continue those and learn from these lessons learned. And only then can we then instill the confidence within our own community. And we are the local representative here. We cherish that. We cherish that dearly. I think the release of these reports have brought emotions out of our community, and I think we need to be cognizant of that. And the mental health piece within our community is very important to us. And with all of our messaging and messaging to you folks, I think the most important thing in here is our residents and their mental health.
Do you think the province has learned or will learn?
I will leave that to the elected officials to answer that one. Yeah.
Chief, in previous interviews, you and Darby both separately talked about communication, whether it's between different departments in the province or even people on the ground, as a key issue that needed to be improved upon. And so after today, I'm wondering how much of this report is actually new or surprising to you, and how much of it is just confirming what you already knew?
Thank you for that question. A lot of it is confirming some of those things. There are some areas, now these are provincial reports. There's some aspects of these reports that are far and above our scale and our scope. But your questions here today are and supported by these reports are just reconfirming on what we already knew, and we're already working towards it.
Chief, can we get your thoughts? The reports were in provincial hands a couple months ago, only released publicly now. Do you think they should have been released when they were complete?
I'm not sure if my opinion there, so I'm going to leave that with the elected officials.
Given all that's been made public, do you think the evacuation should have been called sooner?
You ask a very good question that I can tell you there's a lot of good people that were involved in those decisions, and too soon, not soon enough, incredible circumstances to be put under for those times. Obviously, in reflection, we can all agree that it wasn't soon enough. But understanding that the size and the scale of how this wildfire had blown up for all intents and purposes, I think that the work done from that point forward was incredible. And the fact that the community evacuated relatively safely with the two lives that were lost down the highway, I think is something that this community should be very proud of.
You talk about emotion since these reports have been released. What can you say about Colleen Tatum's comment?
I'm gonna leave that one to Councilor Tatum to answer for that. I just do know that these reports have brought emotions to the surface again for our community. I think it's very important that the mental health piece and everyone out there understands that there is support out there for you, and just continue to move forward. Continue to move forward. I know I've spoken with a few folks within the community, and there's some comment out there that they just want to move forward. They want to move on. And is there confidence that there will be anything done within these provincial reports? That's yet to be determined, and we'll leave that for the elected officials to do that. But I can assure you that locally, we have already done our internal lessons. We're doing our own, I mean, we don't need a lessons learned to do some of those, what I call low-hanging fruit, and we're making strides in that. Obviously, we've went through another wildfire season, and if you, hopefully you have observed some better information from the wildfire, and I think there's some of those results of that efforts that we've been doing since.
For months, the municipality has been saying that they will not be conducting its own review. Suddenly, we saw a reversal when draft reports started landing on your desk. So can you tell us in your own words if the municipality's review is a response to these reports, or will be a response?
I don't know if I should comment, because that's, again, a little bit above me there, but certainly I was involved in the scope of the project, of the reviews that the municipality is doing within their own. I think we need to, again, I'm going to pull you back and understand that this community, even ourselves that work in this community, we're still recovering. We all have our own personal issues, and it takes a little bit of time. So to say that, to link the timing between our personal, or our own review with the provincial review, I don't think is accurate. I think you need to understand that the recovery process within this community takes some time, and the focus at the time was getting our residents back and making sure that their well-being and that sort of thing. But I am happy, and I do support our own internal review, which will be coming out this summer.
Any thoughts on what you expect was going to be on this review? Do you think there's going to be much changes from what was found on these two reviews?
I expect that there would be more local, not local, but there would be more detail put into the evacuation piece and more of our local lessons learned versus what the provincial concerns were.
Do you believe communications is going to be a big part of this review, just like the provincial ones?
That's a matter of fact, absolutely. And I said communications is always a concern and a challenge when dealing with these types and levels of disasters.
Would you welcome what the opposition is calling for a public judge-led inquiry?
I will leave that to the elected officials.
But you wouldn't welcome that if they decided that?
If it was for the purpose of lessons learned and getting better, and what the municipality of Wood Buffalo went through, I think everyone around the province, and quite frankly, we've had questions with colleagues within the industry from around the globe, asking what we went through, and their main focus is how can we learn from what you guys went through so that when it happens to us, if it happens to us, we can deal with it better.
As reports go, it's never exactly what you want. It's hard to really convey emotion in a report, so it's pretty much as expected. May 3rd is a situation that I don't think should have occurred that way. When we dropped our kids off for school that morning, we trusted that there was a communication procedure in place that would be effective, and what we're hearing is that maybe isn't the case. And the province has recommendations that they've committed to doing. They're accepting all of the recommendations in the report, which is great. Particular to the communication piece, I would love to see five years shorten up quite a bit. I understand it takes time to implement any system. I just would hate to see any other community be in the position that we were in May 3rd. Every community, certainly our community, has tabletop exercises. They have emergency services come in. They have different agencies that are deployed, including the food bank, and an emergency comes in and they're the support provider for food, and all of those sorts of things are implemented. But when you have something of the scale of what happened on May 3rd, I don't think that you're ever going to think of every little thing. And that's why the report and these discussions are so important, so that every community can really take what we learned and make their plan even better, because That's the ultimate goal with this. It's not to point fingers, it's not to lay blame, but it's to say what happened that day, how did we get there, and how can we make sure that no community is ever in that position. Well, this report is being released and everyone will review it and see if there's any improvements to be made from it. And of course the municipality is doing its own report as well, and that's again to try and make sure that we're really learning from this event. No one expected May 3rd to happen, but it did happen. So how can we make ourselves better? Not to lay blame, not to say, you know, you did something wrong, but to say, let's be better the next time. Let's make sure that everyone is learning from this experience.